I was within 20 feet of these hooligans. It was one of the darkest moments in American democracy, and yet, not 5 months later, many on the Republican side are trying to whitewash what happened. My Senate Republican colleagues must now ask themselves, are they going to join us in pursuing the truth, or are they going to cover for Donald Trump and his big lie?
I think they've answered. Good morning. We have a lot to cover on the Cross Connection, including this disturbing new police cam video in the Ronald Greene case, and my friend Ta-Nehisi Coates on the new controversy over Nikole Hannah-Jones and the 1619 Project. But we begin today's Cross Connection with Republicans' assault on the truth and their continued fealty to Donald Trump as they continue to minimize the armed insurrection. Now get this, only 35 House Republicans voted to create an independent commission to investigate the January 6th attack on our Capitol. Now to hear Senator Ron Johnson tell it, the day that 5 people were killed at the Capitol just wasn't that big a deal.
The fact of the matter is, even calling it an insurrection, it wasn't. You know, I condemn the breach, I condemn the violence, but to say there were thousands of armed insurrectionists breaching the Capitol, intent on overthrowing the government, is just simply false narrative. By and large, it was peaceful protests, except for, there were a number of people, basically agitators, that whipped the crowd and breached the Capitol, and that's really the truth of what's happening here.
On Wednesday, the FBI released new footage from the insurrection. Now, stick around and take a look at this video, because when they call this a peaceful protest, it's tantamount to spitting in the face of the American people and trying to convince us it's rain. Just stop it.
I need somebody. I need this. I need this.
Now, next week, the commission bill heads to the Senate, where it will join other House-approved bills like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and the For the People Act, and this is the bill to protect voting rights. But because Mitch McConnell is opposed to the commission, it will likely just be the latest in a long list of non-starters in the legislative graveyard known as the U.S. Senate. Joining me now is Congressman Joe Neguse of Colorado, who was a House impeachment manager earlier this year. Congressman, very happy to have you with me this morning to break down all the things that are happening on the Capitol. I want you to first take a listen to this soundbite from Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and the reverse that he does when talking about what happened on January 6th. Take a listen.
There's no question, none, that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. No question about it. The people who stormed this building believed they were acting on the wishes and instructions of their president. After careful consideration, I've made the decision to oppose the House Democrats' slanted and unbalanced proposal for another commission to study the events of January the 6th. It's not at all clear what new facts or additional investigation yet another commission could actually lay on top of existing efforts by law enforcement and Congress. The facts have come out, and they'll continue to come out.
I mean, Congressman, these folks have more flip-flops than the cast of Baywatch. I'm just baffled at how he could look the American people in the face and say that just months after 5 people died. Let me ask you, as a former impeachment manager, what is the purpose of this commission?
Well, first let me say, Tiffany, I think what you just saw is really a party that's been subsumed by fealty to one man. And there are many of us who've long believed the cult of personality that had developed within the Republican Party regarding former President Trump was dangerous for our country. And I think certainly you're seeing that on full display. The commission is a bipartisan effort to try to get to the truth as to what happened on January 6th and to make sure that it never happens again, which means making recommendations to the full Congress on steps that we can take from a security perspective to ensure that we have appropriate guardrails and safeguards to guard our constitutional republic. That is what the commission is about. It is modeled after the 9/11 Commission, which of course was a bipartisan commission that did tremendous work after the 9/11 attack. And as you know, as you just played, it ultimately attracted 35 House Republicans in support of the legislation this last week. I would just say, I think that Americans should be deeply concerned by the actions of House Republicans, in particular this past week, because they really had a clear binary choice between them as to whether or not they chose truth and ultimately creating this bipartisan commission to investigate the events of January 6th, or choosing President Trump. And they clearly chose the latter. And I think it's going to have disastrous consequences for us as a country. It's going to be important for every American of good faith to stand up and push back against the whitewashing of the events of January 6th that so many in the Republican Party have been engaged in over the course of the last few months.
Yeah, and that's really what it is, right? I mean, this is whitewashing of recent American history. And I just, have to say, I don't know that the fealty is to Donald Trump, because this was a problematic standpoint of the Republican Party long before Trump even got here. I want you to take a listen to Congressman McCarthy. He is claiming that the commission is not necessary, but it's so obvious it's BS and politics. Take a look at this about face he makes.
No, I don't think so.
Absolutely certain that none of your members were in any communication with any of the people who stormed Capitol Hill?
But thank you for the question. Everybody have a nice day.
Can I ask about the mask resolution from yesterday?
Because in the Senate, you don't wear a mask. In the House, you have to wear a mask. The only difference is the Speaker. She doesn't want to abide by the CDC rules.
Let me just explain what happened there. He was taking questions. He did not like the questions. He walked away. When someone asked about masks, then he turns back, and all of a sudden he found extra time. It's ridiculous. He's claiming that the commission is not necessary because there are already other investigations happening. Could his opposition be because he might be subpoenaed, given that he was in conversation with Donald Trump while all of this was happening?
It's certainly a possibility. Obviously, the commission's investigation is complementary, or will be complementary, rather, to all the other investigations that are currently being performed. But I would just say, look, Kevin McCarthy knows that the reasons that he is offering in regards to his opposition to the commission are nonsensical. There are no cogent reasons for not supporting the commission. He knows it. And what's most surprising is that he and others are not even trying to kind of present a veneer of responsibility or being a responsible or thoughtful leader. And again, I think it's symptomatic of the real challenges that exist within the House Republican caucus and the Republican Party more broadly. I also would just say, look, if the Senate Republicans intend to filibuster this bill, as seems to be the case, I could think of no better signal that the United States Senate is fundamentally broken as an institution if their first filibuster is over a bipartisan commission into the events of that would investigate the events of January 6th. And if that is the case, then I think that ultimately the Senate Democratic Caucus is going to have to step forward and end the filibuster, eliminate the filibuster once and for all, so that we can finally deliver for the American people and do the important work that the American people expect us to do, including investigating literally an attack on our republic, the first breach of the Capitol wall since the War of 1812.
I echo those sentiments. That filibuster is holding up a lot, including the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and H.R. 1, as you know, which would protect voting rights as they are under attack all across this country. I'm curious something for you, Congressman, because we've seen, Congresswoman QAnon, Marjorie Taylor Greene confront people. I imagine that some of the work of the commission will be able to investigate, if it happens, if members of Congress were intentionally or unintentionally aiding some of these insurrectionists. Working on Capitol Hill every day, do you feel safe? And as a former impeachment manager, do you suspect that maybe some of your colleagues maybe did help some of these insurrectionists?
With respect to the latter question, Tiffany, look, I'm not going to speculate. I think that that's precisely why we'll hope to have a bipartisan commission that can, seek the truth on an impartial and objective basis, and will certainly determine the complicity, if any, of any individuals regarding the events of January 6th. In terms of the security posture of the Capitol, we took a really big step this week in ensuring that our Capitol remains secure by passing an emergency security supplemental, roughly $1.9 billion in funding to respond to the January 6th attack, to protect the U.S. Capitol complex, and all who work and serve within it, including the legions of staff and employees who work in our Capitol each and every day, public servants serving the people of our country. So that supplemental really responds to the recommendations that were made by General Honore, which is, you'll recall, he was commissioned by Speaker Pelosi to study some of the security issues within the United States Capitol complex. So I think we made a big step forward, but look, that bill still has to get through the Senate and ultimately to the president's desk. So we've got a lot more work to do.
Just really quickly, I want to hone in on this. Do you feel safe working on Capitol Hill, given that, some of the members you serve alongside support and share some of the beliefs of the insurrectionists from January 6th?
I do feel safe. I'm grateful to the Capitol Police who, take incredible steps each and every day to protect members of Congress, to protect our staff, to protect all of those who work in the Capitol complex. But again, I think we need to do more. And it's clear, given the supplemental that we just passed on Thursday, that there's a lot more to be done to ensure that the safety of everyone who works in the Capitol complex, including, by the way, citizens as they come into the Capitol complex, is secured for years to come.